Today's story starts with a text message. 5 words. I found someone else. Then 4 more. Deal with it. No warning, no real conversation, no trembling confession over coffee or guilty silence across a dinner table. Just a grenade thrown into a 4-year relationship by a man who truly believed I would absorb the explosion, keep paying the bills, keep the lights on, and wait politely while he figured out whether his old flame was worth burning our future down for. My name is Evelyn Marlowe. I'm 36 years old. I work in finance, which means I have spent most of my adult life being trained to notice patterns, numbers, risk, timing, and quiet leaks before they become floods. Somehow, in my own relationship, I ignored all of them. Daniel and I had been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. The wedding was planned for early summer. The venue was booked, the deposits were paid, the guest list was almost finished. From the outside, we probably looked like 2 adults building something serious. Inside, it felt more like I was holding together a structure Daniel kept leaning against just to see if it would crack. He had charm. That was the dangerous part. When we first met, his confidence felt magnetic. He was witty, relaxed, spontaneous in a way I thought balanced me out. I was structured, careful, predictable, according to him. At first, he said it like a compliment. Later, he said it like a diagnosis. "You plan everything," he told me once at dinner, swirling wine around in his glass like he was judging me from across a courtroom. "Sometimes I feel like I'm dating a calendar." Everyone laughed. I smiled because that was what I did back then. Smile, swallow it, tell myself it wasn't worth ruining the night. Over time, the comments got sharper. My job was stable but boring. My routines were safe. My idea of romance was apparently paying bills on time and not living in chaos. He started mentioning his ex-girlfriend, Melissa, more often than anyone should mention an ex when they are already engaged. Melissa was creative. Melissa understood freedom. Melissa didn't make life feel like a spreadsheet. I should have heard the warning in that. Instead, I kept translating disrespect into restlessness. I told myself Daniel was under pressure. I told myself relationships had seasons. I told myself marriage would settle him. We lived together in an apartment I mostly paid for. Rent, utilities, groceries, car insurance, streaming subscriptions, phone plan, emergency credit card, even the gym membership he kept promising he would start using next Monday. He contributed when his freelance work was good, which meant sometimes yes, often no, and almost never without reminding me how much he hated feeling boxed in by money. I carried it because I thought we were partners. I thought temporary imbalance was different from being used. Looking back, the shift began about 9 months before the text. Daniel started coming home later. He took calls in the hallway. He guarded his phone with a casualness that was too rehearsed. When I asked if everything was okay, he kissed my forehead and said, "You worried too much." That was another phrase I accepted for too long. Then came Wednesday. I was at my desk, halfway through a normal workday, when my phone lit up. "Daniel, I found someone else. Deal with it." I stared at the screen for a few seconds, not because I was shocked. That's the strange part. Somewhere deep in me, behind all the excuses I had been making, something had already known. What surprised me was the cruelty, the laziness of it. 4 years reduced to a text that sounded like he was canceling dinner plans. My fingers moved before my heart could catch up. Me. Finally. Then I put the phone face down. I didn't call. I didn't cry in the bathroom. I didn't drive home to demand answers. I didn't ask if it was Melissa because I already knew it was Melissa. Instead, I opened my laptop. The first thing I did was reroute my direct deposit. Then I reviewed the joint checking account and withdrew only what was legally mine, leaving enough to cover anything already pending. Clean. Precise. Documented. Then came the phone plan. Daniel's line was under my account. Cancelled. His service stayed active for a few hours before going dark. Streaming platforms logged out from every device. Cloud storage downgraded. The grocery delivery account lost my card. The gym membership froze when payment failed. The emergency credit card was closed. Car insurance was next. The policy was in my name. Daniel was only a listed driver. I removed him. I changed passwords on everything tied to my identity: banking, email, utilities, subscriptions, anything that had quietly made his life smoother while he complained mine was too structured. I did not lock him out of the apartment. That would have been messy, and I don't do messy when clean is available. I packed a bag, took my documents, and drove to my friend Claire's place. On the way, I stopped for coffee I didn't taste and a sandwich I barely remembered ordering. That night, Daniel texted again. "Why isn't my phone working?" Then, "My card got declined." Then, "Are you seriously being this petty?" I watched the messages arrive one by one, and something inside me went very still. Not numb, clear. He wasn't asking why our engagement had ended. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't panicking over losing me. He was panicking over losing access. By morning, the tone had changed. Calls from unknown numbers, emails accusing me of financial abuse, messages saying I was overreacting, proving his point, acting insecure. He said couples got through worse. He said I should have waited until we talked like adults. But adults don't end engagements by text and expect the other person to keep paying rent. By the third day, a voicemail came from a number I didn't recognize. Polite male voice, professional, careful. He said he represented Daniel in a domestic financial dispute and wanted to discuss shared assets and abrupt withdrawal of support. I listened twice. Then I smiled for the first time in 3 days. Daniel had hired a lawyer. The voicemail was almost unnervingly polite. "Ms. Marlowe, my name is Richard Hayes. I represent Daniel Foster regarding a domestic financial dispute. I'd appreciate the opportunity to discuss concerns involving shared assets and the sudden withdrawal of financial support." I replayed it once, then a second time. Not because I was intimidated, because I wanted to be absolutely certain I'd heard the words correctly. Shared assets, financial support. Interesting choices. I returned the call during my lunch break. "Ms. Marlowe," he said warmly, "thank you for calling back." "What exactly are we discussing?" "My client believes several financial arrangements were terminated abruptly following the end of your engagement." "We weren't married." A brief pause. "I understand. There was no joint mortgage." "Correct." "No jointly owned property." "Correct." "No written agreement requiring me to continue paying his expenses." Another pause. "No." "Every account I closed belonged to me. Every payment came from my income. Every subscription was opened under my name." He cleared his throat. "My client feels he was left in a financially unstable position." "I imagine he was." Silence. "I'd like to understand the legal basis for this conversation." That question changed everything. Until then, his voice had carried quiet confidence. Now, it carried caution. "Perhaps we could arrange mediation. I'm willing to communicate in writing. I believe an amicable discussion would benefit both parties. I believe written records benefit everyone." He paused again. "My client says he felt blindsided." I almost laughed. "Your client sent me a text ending our 4-year relationship while informing me he'd gone back to his ex-girlfriend." Another silence. My response was to separate my finances from his. "Where is the legal issue?" This time he didn't answer. The call lasted less than 4 minutes. As soon as it ended, I opened my laptop and created a document. Date, time, the exact wording of Daniel's text, The precise minute I rerouted my direct deposit, every account I had closed, every payment I had canceled, every screenshot, every receipt, every email. I sent the file to my personal email so it carried an independent timestamp. Finance teaches you something most people don't appreciate until it's too late. If paperwork exists before the argument begins, it usually wins. That evening, Daniel emailed me. No insults, no accusations. Not at first. Instead, he tried something softer. I never meant it the way it sounded. I was emotional. I assumed we'd talk. You know I didn't literally mean deal with it. Every sentence carefully rewritten, as though changing the wording could erase the message itself. Then came the part that made me stop reading for a moment. He listed expenses: apartment rent, utilities, his phone bill, groceries, gas, health insurance, even his monthly therapy payment. At the bottom, he wrote one sentence: I just need temporary support until I get back on my feet. Temporary support. The word sat on the screen like someone had accidentally forwarded me an invoice. I read the email twice. Not once, not anywhere, did he apologize for cheating. Not once did he ask how I was doing. Everything revolved around maintaining the life I'd been paying for. That was the moment something finally snapped into place. For months, I'd been treating our relationship like a partnership going through difficulties. He'd been treating it like infrastructure. I wasn't his fiancé anymore. I was his operating budget. I replied with exactly 3 sentences. Our engagement has ended. There will be no further financial support. Please direct all future communication through your attorney. Then I blocked his number. Less than an hour later, Richard Hayes called again. This time, his confidence was gone. His email arrived shortly afterward. No demands, only questions. Was Daniel's name on the lease? No. Did I ever promise continued financial support in writing? No. Were any wedding deposits refundable? Partially. Did we own any property together? No. The entire tone had shifted. He wasn't building a case anymore. He was checking whether one existed. There wasn't one. Around the same time, Daniel managed to contact me through a mutual friend's social media account. You've ruined my life. You've turned into someone I don't recognize. Real women don't abandon people they love. I stared at the message. Interesting. 3 days earlier, he'd told me to deal with him leaving. Now he wanted to lecture me about loyalty. I took screenshots, blocked the account, moved on. People often reveal who they really are when reality refuses to cooperate with the version they imagined. The following evening, I returned to the apartment while Daniel was out. It was strangely peaceful. His shoes were still beside the door. His coffee mug sat in the sink. Our engagement photos still rested on the bookshelf. For a second, I remembered the day those pictures had been taken. We'd looked happy, or maybe we'd simply looked hopeful. Hope photographs beautifully. Reality doesn't. I packed everything that belonged to me: documents, laptop, jewelry my grandmother had left me, clothes, a few books, nothing more. Before leaving, I walked slowly through every room with my phone recording video. The furniture was untouched, walls undamaged, everything exactly where I'd left it. Evidence. Not because I expected trouble, because preparation had become instinct. I placed my key on the kitchen counter. No letter, no goodbye, no speech, just silence. The next morning, another email arrived from Richard Hayes. His client wished to explore mediation. I declined. There was nothing to negotiate. No marriage, no shared property, no future. Only logistics. 2 hours later, Daniel sent one final email before I blocked that address as well. It was long, bitter. He called me cold, heartless, vindictive. He insisted Melissa would never treat him the way I had. That sentence almost made me smile. Melissa had once left him before. History, after all, has a habit of repeating itself. What struck me most wasn't what he wrote. It was what he never wrote. Not once did he say, "I'm sorry." Not once. The first real consequence didn't arrive with another email. It arrived with an automatic rent reminder. Daniel forwarded it to me almost immediately. "Rent is due tomorrow. What are you doing?" I did nothing. For the first time in years, I understood something that had always been hidden beneath our relationship. Silence is sometimes the clearest answer. The second consequence came 2 days later. A mutual friend called, sounding awkward. "Hey, Daniel wanted me to ask if you accidentally removed him from the car insurance. His roadside assistance says he isn't covered anymore." I didn't remove him accidentally. Oh. That was the entire conversation. Word spread faster than I expected. Not because I told anyone, because Daniel did. He started contacting mutual friends, explaining that I had suddenly snapped. According to his version, I had become obsessed with money overnight. He conveniently left out the text message. He conveniently forgot to mention Melissa. He conveniently described my actions without explaining what had caused them. Within a week, vague social media posts began appearing. "Some people only love you when they control you. Never let anyone weaponize finances against your happiness. Healing means walking away from toxic people." The comments filled with sympathy. "You deserve better. Stay strong. So proud of you." I read exactly one post, then I closed the app. People who need an audience usually panic when they don't get one. I wasn't going to become part of his performance. A few days later, one mutual friend, Olivia, reached out privately. "I don't want to take sides," she wrote. "I just wanted to know if you're okay." Unlike everyone else, she'd asked about me before asking for gossip. So I answered honestly. I sent her one screenshot, Daniel's message. "I found someone else. Deal with it." Nothing else. 5 minutes later, she replied, "I'm so sorry." That was it. No more questions. No debate. Sometimes the truth requires surprisingly little explanation. About 10 days after everything ended, my mother called. Her voice sounded careful. "Honey, Daniel emailed me." Of course he had. "He said you're refusing to speak to him." "I am." "He says you're being unnecessarily harsh." I took a slow breath and walked her through everything, chronologically. No anger, no exaggeration. I read Daniel's original message aloud. Then I explained every financial account that had been solely mine. When I finished, my mother stayed quiet for several seconds. Finally, she sighed. "Your father would have been proud of you." I hadn't expected those words to affect me. They did. More than Daniel's betrayal ever had. Another week passed. Then Richard Hayes emailed again. The message was noticeably shorter. No references to shared assets, no financial demands, no emotional language, only practical questions. His client wished to retrieve several personal belongings. He also asked whether I would reconsider mediation. I replied politely. Daniel could collect his belongings through a third party. There would be no mediation. There was nothing left to mediate. The following afternoon, another email arrived, even shorter. His client would not be pursuing the matter further. That was the closest anyone involved ever came to admitting reality. The noise stopped after that. No more lawyer, no more indirect messages, no more social media campaigns, no more emotional invoices disguised as apologies. Life became astonishingly quiet. At first, the silence felt unfamiliar. Then it became addictive. I noticed I hadn't checked my phone for hours. Not because I was forcing myself not to, because there was nothing left to fear. No argument waiting. No criticism hiding inside an ordinary conversation. No anxiety every time my screen lit up. Only peace. 3 weeks later, I officially canceled the wedding. I lost nearly $8,000 in deposits. Venue, photographer, catering, flowers, money I'd never recover. Friends kept telling me how awful that must feel. It did, but losing $8,000 hurt far less than spending the next 20 years financing someone who believed I existed to make life comfortable for him. One expense had a limit, the other didn't. I moved into a smaller apartment closer to work. It wasn't luxurious. It wasn't impressive. It was mine. Everything inside it had been chosen by me, paid for by me, maintained by me. One rainy evening, about a month after the breakup, I was walking home when I noticed a familiar figure standing across the street. Daniel. He stepped toward me immediately. "Evelyn, please, 5 minutes." I kept walking. He hurried beside me. "I just want to explain." "There isn't anything left to explain." "You owe me that much." I stopped, slowly turned toward him. "No." He blinked, almost confused. "You can't seriously throw away 4 years without even talking." "You already ended 4 years." I was angry. "You were certain." "I never thought you'd actually leave." For the first time since this all began, he said something completely honest. He had never expected consequences. He had expected compliance. He had expected me to cry, to negotiate, to forgive, to continue paying. He had modeled an entire future around my refusal to walk away. And when I did, his entire plan collapsed. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "I know. We can fix this." "No. You still love me." I thought about that carefully. Then I answered, "I loved the person I believed you were." His shoulders dropped. "I wasn't trying to hurt you." "But you did." "Evelyn, I hope your life gets better, but it won't be because of me." He reached toward my arm. I stepped back. He looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, emotionally. The confidence that had once filled every room had disappeared. In its place stood someone finally experiencing the weight of his own decisions. He called me cold one last time. I smiled gently. "No," I said quietly. "I'm simply no longer available." Then I walked inside my building without looking back. That night, an unknown number texted me. One sentence. "I never thought you'd actually leave." I deleted it without replying. Months have passed now. Melissa didn't stay with him for long. Apparently, relationships built on unfinished ones rarely become stable. I never contacted her, never blamed her. Daniel had made his own choices. So had I. Sometimes people ask whether I regret shutting everything down so quickly. I don't. What I regret is how long I confused patience with self-sacrifice. I ignored warning signs because ending the relationship seemed harder than enduring it. It wasn't. The hardest part wasn't leaving. The hardest part was admitting I'd needed to. Today, I wake up in a quiet apartment. My finances are healthy. My evenings are peaceful. No one criticizes the way I live. No one makes me feel guilty for being responsible. No one mistakes my kindness for an endless source of funding. Daniel once called me cold. Maybe, but cold isn't the opposite of love. Entitlement is. He believed he could end our future while keeping everything that future provided. He didn't lose financial support because I wanted revenge. He lost it because the relationship he depended on no longer existed. Consequences are not punishment. They're simply reality catching up with choices. And sometimes the strongest word you'll ever say is the one you never send.